Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The kingdom of Eloria was a land bathed in magic, its history steeped in tales of mystical power and grand legends. Rolling hills dotted with ancient ruins whispered of a time when the elements themselves had been tamed by the hands of men. At the heart of this kingdom lay the capital city, Talaran, its spires reaching toward the heavens, shimmering with the energy of centuries-old enchantments. But the true secret of Eloria's prosperity was not found in its grand architecture or the strength of its armies. It was found in the Oath of Eloria, an ancient magical contract that had, for generations, bound the elemental spirits of earth, fire, water, and air to the will of the kingdom's rulers. The oath had been forged in the time of the first kings, a desperate act to harness the raw, destructive power of the elements and turn it toward peace and prosperity. For centuries, the contract had held firm, and under its protection, Eloria had flourished. But on the day of the festival of peace, that which had seemed eternal was shattered. Emilia stood in the courtyard of the Arcane Order's grand tower, her breath catching as she watched the festivities below. Her fingers traced the edge of her robe, a deep blue symbolizing her rank as a mage of the highest order. She should have been down there, celebrating with the rest of the city. But something had kept her here, a gnawing unease she couldn't shake. As she gazed out over Talaran, the city was a living tapestry of joy. People danced in the streets, their laughter ringing out like music, and the sky was alight with magical displays, bursts of color and light that painted the clouds in shades of pink and gold. The air hummed with the energy of thousands of voices, all celebrating the peace that had reigned for so long. But beneath it all, there was a tension, a sense of something not quite right. Her unease was confirmed when the sky above Talaran began to change. The brilliant afternoon light dimmed, and a cold wind swept through the city, silencing the laughter. Emilia's heart skipped a beat as she saw the horizon darken, storm clouds swirling in from the east. This was no ordinary storm, it carried a power she could feel even from the tower, a power that spoke of ancient forces waking from a long slumber. In the center of the city, the grand platform where the Council of Elders stood began to tremble. The High Elder, a man with a voice as deep as the earth, was mid-speech when the first bolt of lightning struck the platform. The crowd screamed and scattered as the ground beneath them shook violently. Emilia's eyes widened in horror as she saw the platform split in two, and from the chasm that opened beneath it, a brilliant blue light shot into the sky, shattering the protective barrier that had once shielded the kingdom. The oath was broken. Emilia's blood ran cold as she felt the raw, untamed energy of the elements surge through the air. The storm clouds above thickened, the wind howled with fury, and the earth beneath Talaran groaned as if waking from a long nightmare. The peace that had held Eloria together for centuries was unraveling before her eyes. She didn't need to be summoned. She knew what had to be done. With a wave of her hand, Emilia summoned her staff, a slender, ornate rod of silver and sapphire, and teleported to the heart of the city. She arrived at the shattered platform, where the Council of Elders was attempting to calm the panicked crowd. But their efforts were in vain. The people of Talaran were fleeing in terror, and the once orderly streets were now a chaotic swirl of bodies and debris. Emilia. The voice of the High Elder cut through the din, commanding and urgent. She turned to see him standing at the edge of the chasm, his robes torn, his face pale. The oath has been destroyed. You must go, now. Re-establish the contract before it's too late. His words were an echo of her own thoughts, but there was something in his tone that gave her pause. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. How could this have happened? The oath was supposed to be unbreakable. The High Elder's gaze flickered, and for a moment, Emilia thought she saw a shadow of fear cross his face. We do not have time for questions, Emilia. The elemental spirits are free, and if they are not bound again, Eloria will fall. But Emilia was not satisfied with half-answers. Her mind raced, piecing together the fragments of what she had learned in the arcane order's ancient texts. The oath had been a binding contract, yes, but it had also been a prison. The spirits had been forced into servitude, their will bent to that of Eloria's rulers. Had they broken free themselves? Or had something, or someone, set them loose? She didn't have time to ponder. The earth beneath her feet trembled again, and she knew she had to act. "I will go," she said, her voice firm. "But I need to know the truth, High Elder. What exactly am I dealing with?" The High Elder hesitated, and in that hesitation, Emilia saw the answer she dreaded. "The spirits are not our enemies, Emilia," he said slowly, as if choosing his words with great care. "But they have been wronged. You must be careful, some will not want to be bound again." Emilia nodded, understanding the weight of what he wasn't saying. This wasn't just a mission to restore peace, it was a mission to correct a centuries-old wrong. She turned away, steeling herself for the journey ahead. With a final glance at the devastation around her, she began to chant the teleportation spell that would take her to the crystal caverns, the home of the earth spirit. The transition was instantaneous. One moment, she was standing in the chaos of Talaran; the next, she was enveloped in darkness, the cold air of the caverns pressing in around her. She summoned a small orb of light to guide her through the winding tunnels, the sound of her footsteps echoing off the walls. The crystal caverns were a labyrinth, a maze of twisting passages and towering crystal formations that shimmered with an inner light. The air here was heavy with the scent of earth and stone, and the deeper Emilia ventured, the more she could feel the presence of Goran, the earth spirit. Goran was ancient, older than the mountains themselves. He was a force of stability, a guardian of the earth's secrets, and his anger would be a slow, simmering thing, a rage that could shake the very foundations of the world. Emilia followed the path down, deeper into the heart of the caverns, until she reached the crystal chamber. It was a vast, open space, the ceiling high above her glittering with stalactites. In the center of the chamber stood Goran, his massive form blending with the stone around him. He was a giant of a spirit, his body composed of rock and crystal, his eyes glowing with an ancient, primal light. "Goran," Emilia called out, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "I have come to speak with you." The Great Spirit turned his gaze upon her, and Emilia felt the weight of centuries in that stare. "Emilia of the Arcane Order," Goran rumbled, his voice like the grinding of stones. "Why have you come to my domain?" "I have come to ask for your help," Emilia replied. "The oath has been broken, and without it, Eloria will be destroyed. I need your aid to re-establish the contract." Goran's eyes narrowed, and the ground beneath Emilia's feet trembled. "The oath was a prison, mage. A shackle that bound me and my kin to the will of your people. Why should I help you forge it anew?" Emilia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "I know the oath was unjust," she said. "And I do not seek to bind you against your will. But without the balance the oath provided, the land will fall into chaos. I am here to offer a new contract, one based on respect and cooperation, not subjugation." For a long moment, Goran was silent, his gaze piercing. Emilia felt the weight of his scrutiny, the pressure of the earth itself bearing down on her. Then, slowly, the Great Spirit nodded. "Speak your terms, young mage. I will listen." Emilia stepped forward, closer to the massive form of the earth spirit, and began to outline her proposal. She spoke of a new contract, one that would recognize the spirits as equal partners in the protection of Eloria. In exchange for their aid, the kingdom would honor their autonomy, and the arcane order would work to ensure that the natural world was respected and preserved. Goran listened, his expression unreadable. When Emilia finished, he was silent for a long time, the only sound the distant drip of water echoing through the caverns. Then, finally, he spoke. "Your words are wise, young one. But words alone will not suffice. If I am to agree to this new contract, you must prove your sincerity. There is a trial you must pass." Emilia's heart sank. She had hoped to avoid a trial, knowing the dangers that often accompanied such tests. But she also knew that refusing would mean the end of her mission. She nodded, determination hardening her resolve. "I will face whatever trial you deem necessary, Goran." The earth spirit's eyes gleamed, and the ground beneath Emilia's feet began to shift. "Very well," he rumbled. "The trial is simple. You must endure the weight of the earth, as I do. If you can withstand the pressure without using your magic, then you will have proven your worth." Before Emilia could react, the ground beneath her gave way, and she was swallowed by the earth. The darkness was absolute, the pressure immense. It was as if the entire weight of the mountain was pressing down on her, crushing the air from her lungs, squeezing the life out of her. She could feel the magic within her straining to break free, to shield her from the crushing force. But she held it back, focusing on her breathing, on remaining calm. This was a test of endurance, of willpower, and she would not fail. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as she lay buried beneath the earth. Her body screamed in agony, her mind teetering on the edge of panic. But she held on, clinging to the thought of Eloria, of the people depending on her. Slowly, the pressure began to ease, and light returned as the earth released her. She found herself back in the crystal chamber, gasping for air, her body trembling from the ordeal. Goran loomed above her, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the trial, Emilia of the Arcane Order," he said. "I will honor your new contract." Relief flooded through Emilia, but she knew this was only the beginning. She still had 3 more spirits to persuade, and the next on her journey was the fire spirit, Ignis, who resided in the heart of the volcano of despair. With Goran's agreement secured, Emilia left the crystal caverns and made her way toward the volcano of despair. The journey was arduous, taking her through treacherous mountain paths and across desolate plains scorched by the fires of Ignis. As she approached the volcano, the air grew thick with ash, and the heat became nearly unbearable. The volcano of despair was a towering, active volcano, its peak constantly spewing smoke and molten rock. The ground rumbled with the power of the fire within, and Emilia could feel the presence of Ignis even before she entered the fiery depths. As she descended into the volcano, the heat intensified, the air thick with sulfur and the roar of molten lava echoing off the walls. Finally, she reached the heart of the volcano, a massive chamber filled with rivers of lava and towering flames. In the center of the chamber stood Ignis, the fire spirit, a towering figure of flame and molten rock, his eyes burning with the intensity of 1,000 suns. "Who dares enter my domain?" Ignis roared, his voice a thunderous boom that shook the very walls of the chamber. "Emilia of the Arcane Order," Emilia replied, her voice steady despite the heat that threatened to overwhelm her. "I have come to ask for your aid in re-establishing the oath." Ignis laughed, a sound like the crackling of a massive inferno. "The oath? That prison? Why would I ever agree to such a thing again?" "I am not asking you to submit," Emilia said, stepping closer to the fiery spirit. "I am offering a new contract, one of mutual respect and cooperation. The balance between the elements and the kingdom must be restored, but it must be done fairly, with your consent." Ignis's eyes narrowed, and the flames around him flared dangerously. "You speak of fairness, but you come here to bind me once again. What makes this contract any different?" "Because this time, you will not be a servant," Amelia said, her voice firm. "You will be a guardian, a protector of the balance. You will have the freedom to act as you see fit, without the constraints of the old oath. In return, Eloria will honor your power and work to ensure that the fire within you is respected and preserved." Ignis was silent for a long moment, the flames around him flickering as he considered her words. Then, he spoke. "Very well, mage. I will consider your offer, but first, you must prove your resolve. You must face the trial of flames." Amelia's heart sank at the mention of another trial, but she nodded, knowing she had no choice. "What is the trial of flames?" Ignis's eyes blazed brighter, and the lava in the chamber began to churn. "You must walk through the fire, unaided by your magic. If you can withstand the heat without burning, then you will have proven your resolve." Before Amelia could react, the flames around her surged, creating a wall of fire that encircled her. The heat was intense, searing her skin, and the air was thick with smoke. But she knew that to use her magic would mean failure, so she clenched her teeth and began to walk. Each step was agony, the flames licking at her skin, the heat threatening to consume her. She focused on her breathing, on pushing forward, one step at a time. The pain was excruciating, but she kept moving, knowing that she had to succeed, not just for herself, but for all of Eloria. Time seemed to stretch as she walked through the fire, the heat sapping her strength, the smoke filling her lungs. But finally, she emerged from the flames, her body scorched and trembling, but still standing. Ignis watched her, his expression inscrutable. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You have proven your resolve, Amelia of the Arcane Order. I will honor your new contract." Amelia felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she knew she couldn't rest yet. With the fire spirit's agreement secured, she had to continue her journey. Next, she would face the water spirit, Naiad, who dwelled in the depths of the Azure Sea. The journey to the Azure Sea was long and exhausting, taking Amelia through dense forests and across treacherous rivers. But finally, she reached the coastline, where the sea stretched out before her, its waters a deep, endless blue. The Azure Sea was calm, its surface smooth as glass, but Amelia could feel the presence of Naiad beneath the waves. She waded into the water, her heart pounding as she felt the cool, soothing embrace of the sea. She summoned her magic, creating a bubble of air around herself, and dove beneath the surface. The underwater world was a place of beauty and mystery, the sunlight filtering through the water in shimmering beams, illuminating schools of fish and vibrant coral reefs. But as Amelia descended deeper into the sea, the light began to fade, and the water grew colder. Finally, she reached the depths where Naiad resided, a massive cavern filled with glowing algae and strange, bioluminescent creatures. In the center of the cavern stood Naiad, the water spirit, her form shifting and flowing like the waves themselves, her eyes a deep, endless blue. "Why have you come, mortal?" Naiad's voice was soft and melodic, but there was a hint of danger beneath it, like the calm before a storm. "I have come to ask for your aid," Amelia replied, her voice echoing in the watery chamber. "The oath has been broken, and without it, Eloria will fall into chaos. I seek to re-establish the contract, but in a way that honors your power and autonomy." Naiad regarded her with an inscrutable gaze, her form rippling like the surface of the sea. "You speak of honor, but the old oath was a chain that bound me to the will of men. Why should I trust you to do any differently?" "Because I seek to right the wrongs of the past," Amelia said, stepping closer to the water spirit. I offer a new contract, one of mutual respect and cooperation. The balance between the elements and the kingdom must be restored, but it must be done fairly, with your consent. Naiad was silent for a long moment, the water around her still and calm. Then, she spoke. You are brave to seek such a thing, mortal. But words alone will not convince me. You must prove your sincerity by completing the trial of the deep. Amelia's heart sank at the mention of another trial, but she nodded, knowing she had no choice. What is the trial of the deep? Naiad's eyes darkened, and the water around Amelia began to churn. You must dive to the bottom of the azure sea, to the place where the light does not reach. There, you will find a pearl that contains the essence of the sea. Bring it to me, and you will have proven your sincerity. Before Amelia could respond, the water around her surged, pulling her deeper into the sea. The light faded quickly as she descended, the pressure increasing with each passing moment. The water grew colder, and the darkness became absolute. Amelia swam downward, her lungs burning for air, her mind racing as she searched for the pearl. The darkness was overwhelming, the pressure crushing, but she knew she couldn't give up. She pushed forward, her eyes scanning the inky blackness for any sign of light. Finally, she saw it, a faint glow in the distance, barely visible in the darkness. She swam toward it, her heart pounding as she reached out and grasped the pearl. The moment her fingers touched it, the darkness around her exploded into light, and she found herself back in the cavern, the pearl clutched in her hand. Naiad watched her with an unreadable expression, then slowly nodded. You have proven your sincerity, Amelia of the Arcane Order. I will honor your new contract. Amelia felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she knew her journey was not yet complete. There was still one more spirit she needed to persuade, the air spirit, Zephyra, who resided in the Temple of Winds. The journey to the Temple of Winds was the most treacherous yet, taking Amelia through barren deserts and over towering mountain ranges. The air grew thin and cold as she climbed higher, and the wind howled with a fury that threatened to knock her off her feet. Finally, she reached the summit of the mountain, where the Temple of Winds stood, a crumbling ruin of ancient stone, surrounded by swirling clouds and gusting winds. The air was thick with the presence of Zephyra, the most powerful and the most resentful of the elemental spirits. As Amelia approached the temple, the wind intensified, whipping her hair around her face and tugging at her robes. She could feel Zephyra's anger in the howling wind, a rage that had been building for centuries. Zephyra. Amelia called out, her voice barely audible above the roar of the wind. I have come to speak with you. The wind swirled around her, and a figure emerged from the storm, a tall, ethereal being with wings of pure wind, her eyes a piercing blue. Zephyra regarded Amelia with a cold, unforgiving gaze. You dare come to my domain, mortal? After all your kind has done? I come seeking your aid, Amelia said, stepping forward despite the wind that threatened to knock her down. The oath has been broken, and without it, Illyria will fall into chaos. I seek to re-establish the contract, but in a way that honors your power and autonomy. Zephyra laughed, a sound like the shriek of a hurricane. Honor? Autonomy? Your kind knows nothing of those things. The old oath was a chain that bound me to the will of men. Why should I trust you to do any differently? Because I seek to right the wrongs of the past, Amelia said, her voice firm. I offer a new contract, one of mutual respect and cooperation. The balance between the elements and the kingdom must be restored, but it must be done fairly, with your consent. Zephyra's eyes narrowed, and the wind around Amelia intensified, tearing at her robes and pushing her back. You speak of fairness, but I see only a mortal seeking to bind me once again. If you truly wish to earn my trust, you must prove your resolve. You must face the trial of the winds." Emilia braced herself against the wind, her heart sinking at the mention of yet another trial. But she knew she had no choice. What is the trial of the winds? Zephyr's eyes gleamed with a cold light, and the wind around Emilia began to swirl faster and faster, forming a vortex. You must stand in the eye of the storm, unaided by your magic. If you can withstand the fury of the wind without being swept away, then you will have proven your resolve. Before Emilia could react, the wind around her surged, lifting her off the ground and hurling her into the heart of the storm. The wind howled around her, tearing at her body, threatening to fling her into the abyss. She struggled to stay upright, her mind racing as she fought against the force of the wind. The storm was relentless, the wind buffeting her from all sides, trying to knock her off her feet. But Emilia gritted her teeth and held on, focusing on the ground beneath her, on keeping her balance. The wind tore at her, pushing her to the brink, but she refused to give in. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the wind began to die down, and the storm around her dissipated. Emilia found herself back in the temple, her body bruised and battered, but still standing. Zephyra watched her with an unreadable expression, then slowly nodded. "You have proven your resolve, Emilia of the Arcane Order. I will honor your new contract." Emilia felt a wave of relief wash over her as she realized she had succeeded. She had faced each of the elemental spirits, earned their trust, and forged a new oath, one based on respect and cooperation, not subjugation. With the agreement of all four spirits secured, Emilia returned to Talaran. The city was still recovering from the chaos unleashed by the breaking of the old oath, but with the new contract in place, the natural disasters began to subside, and the people of Eloria slowly began to rebuild. The Council of Elders welcomed her back, their faces a mixture of relief and respect. "You have done what we could not, Emilia," the High Elder said, his voice filled with admiration. "You have restored the balance and ensured the future of Eloria." Emilia nodded, but her mind was filled with the memories of her journey, the trials she had faced, the spirits she had encountered, and the knowledge she had gained. She knew that the new oath was not a perfect solution, but it was a step toward a better future, one where the forces of nature and humanity could coexist in harmony. As the days passed, the kingdom of Eloria began to heal, and Emilia found herself at the center of a new era of peace and cooperation. The Arcane Order, humbled by the events that had unfolded, began to reform, dedicating themselves to a new mission of protecting the balance between the elements and the kingdom. Emilia herself became a symbol of this new era, her name spoken with reverence and respect across the land. But she knew that her journey was not over. There would always be new challenges, new trials to face, and she was ready to meet them head-on, for she had learned that true power did not come from domination or control, but from understanding, cooperation, and the willingness to do what was right, no matter the cost. And with that knowledge, Emilia knew she could face whatever the future held. As the sun set over Talaran, casting the city in a golden light, Emilia stood on the balcony of the Arcane Order's tower, watching the people below. The air was calm, the sky clear, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Emilia felt at peace. She had done what she set out to do. She had restored the oath, but more importantly, she had helped to create a new understanding between the people of Eloria and the elemental forces that governed their world. And as the stars began to twinkle in the evening sky, Emilia knew that whatever came next, she was ready.